Alrighty, so we're talking about the 3 secrets that you need to start living a fulfilling life. And I know you're saying, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Bennett, that is the cheesiest line ever. What is with the title? And if you think about it, though, it's really true. If you want to think, like, we need to feel fulfilled. We need to be doing things that are going to help us become the people that we want to become. And if we can start to understand that, hey, you know what? I have the ability to do certain things in my own personal life that's only going to help me, then like, why wouldn't I do it? And there's constant themes that I find with my clients all the time that I'm going to share with you, give you guys some deep insights into certain ideas and really things that transformed my life personally, because I was always on this drive, on this journey, and I still am on this journey, and I definitely don't have it all figured out, and I'm still constantly trying to work on it. But one of the cool things about being in this thought leader position, being in this position where I can share content and be with everybody over here, is that I have the ability to start to share different ideas that I'm hearing. I'm constantly searching for the ideas for my own personal self, really selfishly, but then again, I'm here to be able to share it with everybody else. So feel free to reach out. If you have anybody has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat down below. Start to wave to everybody who's over here. This is awesome. Welcome everybody. And throughout the next, 20 minutes or so, I'll be happy to share some really, really cool ideas that I learned along the way. And I'm going to be hopefully being able to answer any questions that anybody has. So let's jump into it. So one of the cool things about meaning and fulfillment, we're going to start with meaning and fulfillment, then we're going to go to goal setting, and then we're going to just talk about investing in yourself, what you could specifically do day to day, start today. So when it comes to meaning and fulfillment, it's really interesting because I think there are so many people out there who have meaningful jobs. They do meaningful things. You have teachers, you have doctors, you have parents. Like the work that they're doing is like so meaningful, and it doesn't really get more meaningful than that. And you need to ask yourself a question, is like, then why are a lot of those people just miserable? And if you start to think about it and try to figure out, okay, so what's this equation? Just because you're doing something meaningful doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be fulfilled afterwards. And it's something that is so powerful when it comes to what it is we're looking to do. And we're all trying to find our own true authenticity, and we're all trying to figure out what it is that we can start to allow ourselves to become a certain person. But to recognize that we all have this ability to do meaningful work, and it might not be so fulfilling. You have teachers who are like burnt out, who are annoyed. They don't have that, they don't necessarily have the patience to wait 50 years to see the results of their students. And it's something that can be really frustrating. And if we could start to understand for ourselves, hey, you know what? We could start to switch something. We have the ability to start to do certain things, to allow ourselves to take that meaning that we have and to do something fulfilling. And what's cool about it is also is just because let's say you're not a doctor. Let's say you're not the type of person who is who's doing something, day to day. Maybe you're like an accountant. I don't know. And I don't know, maybe some accountants feel like it's very meaningful work, but something like that generically might not feel as fulfilling. You're not really speaking to people. Maybe you're behind the camera. Maybe you're doing certain things that don't necessarily, you don't feel necessarily that you're really moving the mark as much, moving it forward. So how can we feel fulfilled doing that stuff? So does that mean like you're doomed if you're not doing something meaningful? And the answer is of course not. So what is it that we can start to do to allow ourselves to feel good about ourselves, even though we're doing something and maybe it is not meaningful, or if we're already doing something meaningful, that we can start to take that to make it really, really meaningful. And that is something that we could start to do. And guess what? The thing is, like, we can make that happen right now, today. And the coolest things that we can start to do is, number one is we have to have the ability to pause. We'll get straight into practical. I'm very into practical tools. Number one is we have to take those pauses throughout the day. I remember when I was getting married and we're on my wedding day, I got a piece of advice. And the piece of advice was, Bennett, throughout the wedding, make sure to just stop and to take things in. Take in the moment. Because the wedding's going to fly by. You're going to have an amazing time, hopefully. Right, which I did. You're going to have an amazing time. And what you have to understand is you need to pause and you need to understand that there is going to be something that is going to be able to really take from the moment. And I think it's something that is so powerful. And the fact throughout my wedding, my wife and I were both able to just stop and pause and to reflect and to see the people there and people dancing and people just being so happy. And like, I remember sitting at the table with my wife, and like these moments throughout the wedding that I captured with my mind, it was so powerful to make it such a more meaningful event. Because so many times people will come to a wedding, even in their own personal wedding, and it just flies by and they're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what happened. They look at the videos like, that happened at my wedding, I totally forgot, and this and that. And it's so powerful to know that, hey, you know what? We have the ability to start to change. We have the ability to just slow things down. And Brendon Burchard has some great ideas about this, some insights, that he says whenever he comes into a room, he pauses, like a new room that he's about to like do something new in, he pauses for like 2 to 3 seconds. Whenever he's about to have a conversation with somebody, he asks himself, who do I need to be in this moment? And who does the person that I'm going to be speaking to need me to be in this moment? And such powerful questions that we can ask ourselves, really just to change everything. And so many times people think that in order to feel so good about yourself, to feel so good about your life, you need to be focusing on something massive. And like that's me, by the way. Like I'm just totally talking to myself right now. But like I need to be doing some like crazy action. And it's so funny because like we see the successful people and they're like, no, like it's not as like glorious as it looks. Like, yeah, there's some perks and this and that, but like after a certain level, like your happiness isn't going to necessarily get that much better. And I think we need to start to ask ourselves certain questions about what is it we can start to do like daily. What are the small things that regardless of your situation, you can start to do? And I think that is something really powerful. And we can start to pause and ask ourselves, who is it that we need to be and who is it that we need to become? Then all of a sudden things start to shift in our own life and we are able to take such advantage of the life that we want. And it's such a powerful, I think it's such a powerful idea because so much of what it is that we're looking for and there's so much that we're searching for in our own personal lives really comes from that fulfillment, is coming from those moments. And it can really start to shift everything. And we'll transition into goal setting right now because many times when we set goals for ourselves, we have to understand that, if you look back at the things that you're really proud of, that you've done in the last, 5, 10, your whole lifetime, let's say. What are those times? What are those moments? And I did a whole live on this on my LinkedIn and my YouTube channel today about, really stretching ourselves and how we can start to step into the moment. I told a story about when I was in 8th grade and one of my friends ended up calling on me to go sing in the choir that our school never really had, and it was the first time we're having it, and he thought it'd be funny if like Bennett would be like the singer, and then I ended up singing in front of like 2,000 people with a solo, and it was a little hilarious. But what was interesting is that moment made me into somebody. It stretched me into somebody that I wasn't beforehand, and our experiences really allow us to become somebody new. And as Jim Rohn always talks about, it's not what you get in life, but it's who you become in life. And if we're not doing things that are stretching us, that are making us become somebody, so then like what's the point? Like who is it that we're really supposed to be? And that is something that we could start to shift within our own personal lives, is who is it that we're becoming in the moment? When you take a new job, who are you becoming in the job? It's not necessarily the job. Yes, like there's certain people who are constantly looking to like shift and become, take new opportunities. But if they're taking a lateral opportunity and it's not going to like really help them out anymore, maybe a little bit of a pay raise, but they're not becoming anybody from that job. So then like, why is it so great to take that job? Maybe it's worth it to take a job that pays less, but then you're becoming somebody that you can then start to charge more another way. And the value that we bring to the marketplace is the value that we get paid for. So how can you make yourself more valuable? And by doing that and becoming the person that you need to become, that could be the thing to start to shift it. And guess what? It starts with goals. So how can we start to set our goals? So I have a whole thing on goals and how it is that we can start to shift our goals. But here are some ideas, some certain expectations, I would say, that a lot of people have when it comes to goal setting that is just totally off and usually just ruins their goal setting. And remember, if anybody has questions, feel free to put it down low. When it comes to goal setting, if I would ask you the goal that you're about to do, would it be difficult? So most people would say, yeah, it's going to be hard. So why, when you start to hit that brick wall, that wall that like you have no idea how to get around it, you're like so confused, you have like this one idea, you have this one way you're going to start to do something, and all of a sudden you do it and it doesn't take off as you thought, that all of a sudden you're like, okay, this isn't working, this isn't for me. Like you agree that you should be doing something that is going to be hard. And it's going to be hard, but for some reason, when the hard happens, we sort of like ignore it. And we say, nope, this is not the path that I want. This is not the door that I expected. And if we could have the appropriate expectations of what hard really means, what does it mean that something's going to be difficult? Then all of a sudden, when that thing comes up, then we have the ability to start to pivot and to shift. And it was interesting because one of the coaching programs I started launching over last summer, oh my gosh, almost like a year already, it's crazy. But one of the programs that I started running was for young adults. And I work a lot with young adults now and really help them just set them up for success, because I've been working with so many adults who are not where they ever thought that they should be. So I started working with the younger generation and really just trying to help them, figure out what it is that they're looking to do and really just help them build the skills that they want. But what happened was when I started to launch the program is I had this one way I was going to do all my marketing. And I spent a lot of money on marketing in one specific way. And when I marketed that way, like it fell flat. Like one person reached out to me and they only reached out to me for like something else. And I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Like this is not the way it was supposed to go. And I realized like, okay, this is the moment and it's difficult, it's hard right now. What are other avenues I could do? And I was thinking about like, what is it that I can do? Because I had one path that got totally blocked. And I started to think, okay, who else do I know? I knew somebody who had an email list who'd be willing to send out my flyer. And I had somebody else who, might know about 2 or 3 other people that could be interested in it. And then slowly but surely we started to get people. And thank God, like it's been awesome. But understanding that difficulty is something that we're not going to know until we're in it. And if we could just be okay with that, if we could have that expectation of saying, hey, it's going to be hard, and I don't even know what hard really means. So when the difficulty happens, we are able to move forward. We're able to see, okay, how can I get creative in the moment? How can I get curious about what's the feedback I'm getting? Because so many times people love beating themselves up about failure. I messed this up, I messed that up. It's like, okay, what's the feedback? And that's the biggest shift we can make. And once we start to do that, then all of a sudden we start to be able to move forward. Another idea in terms of goal setting that we can start to do is like we have to figure out what our why is. You see, we're going to get knocked off the boat. Things are going to get rocky. Things are not going to be so certain. You think of the people who are most successful, they're going through this every single day. They're just able to handle it. And if we can start to say to ourselves, hey, what is my why? What is that anchor that I have that's going to help me be successful in the thing that I want to be doing? That's going to keep me on the path that no matter how strong the winds get, I'm going to be able to move forward. And that is something that is so powerful that so many people don't realize, that you need to come up with your why. And it's not just like this generic why, I want to make $1 million, but it's like really getting to the depth of it. I want to make $1 million. Why do you want to make $1 million? Because I want to support my family. And we're back. And like, what is it that we can start to do to allow ourselves to start to see the things that we want? And we can start getting more clarity on our why. What ends up happening is we're able to move forward. We're able to take the action that we want so much quicker. Because if you think about success, what is success? I know I have to do these 100 steps and I'll be successful. The quicker I can do those steps, the quicker I'm going to be successful. What happens with so many people is that they end up messing up. They end up getting hit with some type of resilience or difficulty that happens, and then they end up not taking the action as quickly. They waited a week or two, or 2 or 3 months. I was working with a client who was trying to get his stuff on Amazon, and it literally took him 8 months until we started speaking, when it took him 3 days to get his stuff on Amazon, just because he had these certain fears and certain things that were holding him back. And how many of us have so much we want to be doing, but we can't just because we're holding ourselves back? And it could be so scary, it could be so lonely, it could be so frightening to say, hey, you know what, there's so much more that I can reach, but I just can't do it because of something. And if we could just cut that and just say, why am I doing this thing in the first place? That could be something that could really inspire us to take that action, to move forward. A lot of times the why is usually for somebody else, because like how many times I wouldn't do that, but hey, if it's for my kid, that's a different story. And we all have that ability to start to move forward and to start to take those actions. So what is it that you're going to do? What's your why? How can you make your why so strong that regardless of what happens in your life, you are going to be able to move forward? You're going to be like an angel being so swift over everything. And we all have that ability. We just have to get clear. We got to think about it. Take out your journal, whatever color it is, try to figure out what you're doing and move forward. You could have a gray journal, you could have a green journal, you could have any type of journal you want. Just make sure you have a journal. Journals are huge, by the way. And that's going to get us to our last point. How can we start investing in ourselves? And I think the biggest thing that we can start to do is to really just start to collect the data. And what I mean by collecting the data, it's collecting the data about yourself. You know that thing that you say about yourself, like, oh, I'm an angry person, or I always get frustrated, or I always get annoyed, or, I never succeed, or, whatever other things like we call ourselves out for. So I want you to get real clear on that. So the next time you happen to be in one of those moods, I want you to ask yourself what led you to that moment, and I want you to write it down. So the next time it happens, in a couple of weeks or days or months, however long it happens, I want you to write it down again. And then instead of saying like, oh, I'm somebody who gets anxious all the time. He's like, really all the time? I want you to be real clear with that. Because maybe it's really like only on Mondays when like it's the beginning of the week. Or maybe it's like every like couple of weeks whenever you see a certain family member that gets you really stressed out. And we need to start to ask ourselves, what is it? Who are we? What are we doing? And people don't know their own personal lives. And if we can start to collect the data, then we start to pick up the patterns that are happening in our lives, then we know what to actually work on. And so many people just go through life not knowing about themselves. The best thing you can do is know yourself. What is it that you can do? Who is it that you are that you can start to move forward and really take that action? And so many people don't realize that. And that's why I'm a huge proponent of journaling, because like you can literally look back at a specific date and say, okay, what happened the 3 days prior to this? There's something going on here. I don't know what it was, but what's going on here? And I think that could be the first thing that you can start to do. The second thing you can start to do is you have to understand that you need to start small. I'm very into, and you can ask my wife this, I'm very into setting big goals. I'm very into like, go do something crazy, do something that's going to stretch you, that's going to make you. But I'm not into like taking this like massive action, because even if you can take that first massive step, what ends up happening is you usually end up tripping. You usually end up falling. And we could start to say to ourselves, hey, you know what? What's the small thing that I could do? And for me personally, it started with a walk around the block. I was listening to this man named Jim Rohn, who was Tony Robbins' teacher. And I'm like, why do I should learn from Tony Robbins if I just learn from his teacher? Which you learn from both of them. And Jim was talking about the fact that when he started walking around the block, it started making him eat an apple a day, and then it started to get him like this whole snowball of things that ended up happening. And for me personally, it was all about walking around the block. And I took a 5-minute walk right around my block, listen to like a podcast or an audiobook. And what ended up happening is from that 5-minute walk into a 7-minute walk, turned into a 10-minute walk, turned into a 20-minute walk. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, I'm starting to eat healthier. I'm starting to go running. I ended up leaving my W-2 to go to, turn into entrepreneur. And like so many things opened up for me by me just starting to take small steps. And we all have this ability. We all have that thing that we can start to do, that one small thing. And as a coach, one of the things I ask my clients is like, what's the next step? Like, I know you want to get to X, Y, and Z. I know you want to be making X amount of money. I know you want to not be stressed, or you want to be more decisive. But what's the next step that you need to be making? What's the next small thing that you need to be doing? Because we all know what it is. We know the thing that we're avoiding. But what is it? How can we start to change that one thing? How can we even make that step even to a smaller step that can allow us to take that action? And once we do that, then we build on that and we take another small step. We take another small step, and then all of a sudden we start to feel a little bit more comfortable. Then we start to be a little bit more comfortable, and a little more. Then we start to take a bigger step, and a bigger step, and all of a sudden this thing that we have momentum is on our side, and all of a sudden we just start to take this action that is not reasonable for us not to be successful. We all want this success. We all want to be able to live the life that we know we can and should be living. And it's scary out there. And there's so much unknown, especially nowadays. There's so much unknown. And so many people are just so frozen. And if you could get that support, I think OKclarity is literally the best place. They're literally just putting everybody that you can get in one place. Get the support. Get that coach, get that therapist, whoever it is that you need to help you get out. And if you don't know, just go ask somebody. If you're looking for a type of coach, ask me. I'll be happy to feel free to DM me, and I'll be happy to refer you to anybody. And if we could start to ask ourselves these questions, try to figure out, okay, when it comes to meaningful, I might be doing something meaningful, but I'm not fulfilled. How can I just start to pause and really take in the moment? How can I start to appreciate really just the small things? That example of me at my wedding, really just like focusing on, okay, a couple of times throughout the wedding, how can I start to just acknowledge the small things that are happening in my life? The small things that are, going on my day-to-day with my kids, this and that. One of the really cool tip that I learned, which is really awesome, when it comes to relationships, so whether it's a spouse or whether it's a kid, and, when you get older, you don't have that much time. You can't necessarily, spend so much time with them, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how am I supposed to spend this time, but also not be able to, have that relationship that I want to be able to have with them. So one of the cool things that you can do is if you just look in their eyes while you're talking to them, yes, put down your phone. Not right now because you're on the phone. Maybe you're on your phone. Maybe you're on the computer, but you're probably on your phone right now. Don't put down your phone right now. But when you're trying to speak to somebody in person, look in their eyes. Try to feel that connection with them. Try to say, hey, you know what? I really hear you, but without saying that, because you are just so engrossed in what it is that they're saying. Nod your head, smile a little bit. And then all of a sudden, you start to build this rapport in this relationship, even if you only have 3 minutes to spend with one another. You're tucking your kid in to go to sleep. Just like, look at them. Don't be busy with the blanket and the pillow and throwing things all on the side. Just be with them. Most people just want to be with somebody. We all want that. We don't want to be lonely. It's like uncomfortable nowadays because so many of us are not like used to it. But we all have that ability to really step into it. So that's my spiel for tonight. If anybody has any questions, I'll be staying for another 2 or 3 minutes to see if anybody has any questions. But my name is Bennett Schwartz. I'm a performance coach. I have a program for young adults. I work with adults as well. My job is to really help get people from point A to point B as quickly as possible. I'm very into mindset. I'm very into personal development. I have a YouTube channel. I'm here on OKclarity. Really, really fun stuff. Feel free to reach out to me, DM me, and whatnot. But any specific topics anybody wants me to speak about, I know some people still on here. So feel free to reach out or say anything. I'll wait another minute or so. But thank you guys for this opportunity. It's been real fun. And remember, we all have that ability to do so much. How does somebody deal with chronic pain? That is a great question. I have no idea. I don't deal with that stuff. If you could be more specific, maybe, then I maybe could give you some like tips or whatnot. But I don't know how specific you want to get on an Instagram live. But one of the things I like personally working with is personal development. So really the skills. So if anybody has any questions about confidence, decision making, anxiety, if anybody has any questions about goal setting, we spoke about a little bit. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions over here. But if not, you feel free to DM me and we can take it over there. There's still some people on here, so I know somebody's like waiting for a question. So feel free to ask anything, and if not, we're going to head out in one Benito Santiago, and take it from there. Alrighty, thank you. OKclarity, thank you. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. Yeah, I think this was great too. I had a great time. I had a real fun time. Feel free to connect. I share content all day, every day. Welcome, Dimply. We're so happy to have you. What's my Insta name? My Insta name is Coaching with Bennett. Coaching with Bennett. I'm going to be able to tag it onto this, so I'll put it in the comments over here. So if anybody wants, you can find me on, literally I'm everywhere, on all platforms. Feel free to find me over there, but happy to connect, happy to answer any questions. I love this stuff. I love the personal development world. I love about really just tapping into potential. I know for me personally, it's always been a direction that I'm looking for, trying to figure out what it is that I can start to do. So I know it's been really powerful for me personally, and I think it can be powerful for a lot of people because I don't think I'm the only one in the boat. I think we all know that we're capable of doing so much more, and we don't want to look back when we're 80, rocking on our chair to be like, why didn't I just do that one thing? Why did I have to be scared to do that thing? And I think if we can start to move forward, then all of a sudden, I think our lives could be so much better and so much more exciting. So if anybody has any questions for last, I assume not, and we'll see everybody on the next one.